Hello everybody, this is Julian and Jameson here to review our second installment
of the Nancy Drew game ranking series.
Today we're covering Treasure in the Royal Tower, the fourth game in her interactive Nancy Drew game series, and I think it's revered as one of the most popular games in the series.
Most iconic, to say the least. Just to clarify, this is a part of our new series of trying to rank every single Nancy Drew game on 6 stats, being the story or mystery, suspects, puzzles, music, atmosphere, and ending. And we're trying to determine which is the best game, which is the worst game, where all the games fall on our scale at least, etc. So thanks for coming along for this ride. Hope you enjoy watching these as much as we enjoy making them. So let's start off with the story of this game. Nancy is traveling out to Wisconsin for a ski vacation, and she gets snowed into Wickford Castle, this old castle with this great imported tower from the French Revolution era that was carried and rebuilt all the way over from France into Wisconsin.
A very defining part of this game is the castle itself. Wickford Castle, it feels huge, honestly. Like, you never feel like you're in a confined space. It's a lot of fun. I remember the first time I played it, I would get lost from time to time. It's a pretty big place, and it's got a lot of fun places to explore within it, so
Nancy is being snowed in to the hotel, or the castle, and here she's discovered that somebody has vandalized the library and it's now off limits. There's reason to believe that the vandal is still somewhere within inside the library, as it has been snowed in and nobody can get out of this castle.
And I've always loved that idea of a story, being snowed into a castle with...
It's almost like The Shining.
It is kind of like The Shining. You know that somebody among you is a thief. Somebody here is like the culprit, and you're confined to interact with everybody in the castle. You can't really leave. I just think that was a really cool touch.
And the blizzard doesn't even end till Act 2, so until then you can't even go outside. So overall, it's got a great setting for a mystery, it's got a great premise, and the characters are almost all perfect, so I think we'll get into them now. Who are we going to start with?
I say we start with one of my favorite characters of all time, Dexter Egan.
Yeah, Dexter.
Caretaker of the hotel. What I love most about Dexter Egan is the character transformation that he undergoes. Her Interactive seriously stepped up their game when it came to characters compared to the previous game, Message in a Haunted Mansion. Almost every character, emphasis on almost, is great in this game. They're fun to talk to, they have really interesting backstories, and I just liked talking with the characters, interacting. I mean, it's one of those games where you enjoy the conversations and you make sure of going about every single talking point just to hear what every character has to say, you know?
Dexter has a very special subplot in this game where you find a secret study that was kept by Ezra Wickford, the original owner of the castle, where you find out that Dexter was actually his adopted son, and he was a problem child. Dexter would get expelled from schools, he'd get picked up by the police for making counterfeit bills, and overall, he would have been a horrible child to anyone else, but Ezra Wickford, the original owner of the castle, had so much love in his heart to give that he still loved Dexter, even if he was a horrible son. And this past starts to catch up with Dexter as the game goes on.
It's important to note Dexter starts off extremely grumpy. He's pretty rude to Nancy. He makes us do all of his work. The game starts off with about 3 or 4 consecutive chores. It's pretty much busy work, but at the same time, it's not like a nuisance. Each one of Dexter's chores, it actually was a cool way of integrating the player in meeting other suspects in the game, and I think that's what it was intended for.
It also just helps you explore the castle. So, on that note, we should talk about the other staffer suspect who is at the hotel, and that is Jacques Rene, the French ski instructor who works down in the basement. So, this is yet another really interesting character. This man was a Olympian for the French skiing team until he choked in one of the Olympic Games and fell flat on his face on a slope, and now he's just kind of moved to America for work in disgrace, and he kind of has a lot of trouble with the past of him. He still has a heavy, thick French accent, and he's kind of fun to talk to. There is a part in the game, though, a little after the first half, where he just stops talking to you for the rest of the game. We'll get into that later. So that kind of feels like some of his dialogue was squandered. But overall, Jacques Rene is a very colorful character. After the first half, where he just stops talking to him. Julian likes him, though.
Yeah, I like Jack. He's got a really unique character backstory, and
he feels genuine. I'll give him that.
He too undergoes a little bit of a character transformation as we play through the game. He goes from this like innocent little ski instructor to we learn a lot about his backstory, why he's specifically working here, what his real objective is, and I think that was a really cool touch that they played on his character.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we hit puzzles, probably.
Little ski instructor to
So Lisa Ostrom,
objective worst character, and I mean,
ever.
I think we're going into spoilers here. The worst culprit of all time, in my opinion.
Lisa Ostrom is God, she's just so suspicious because she's
Fake IDs.
It's very difficult to speak highly of her in any regard. She introduces herself all naive. She just sounds like when you talk to her, it's like you're talking to a narc who's really trying to be your friend.
Right.
But they're doing a bad job of it.
And she's so trivial that you can complete the game talking to her 1 or 2 times. She's not really there except for exposition when she gives you little tips about the medallions and everything.
Yeah, story-wise, her role is she is a, quote, savvy photojournalist checking out spooky old mansions in the Midwest, and she literally just sits by a fireplace all day, just reading a book or something.
She's extremely red, yet...
Yeah, she wears, she's got red hair, she's got red sweater.
Red eyes.
She's got red eyes?
She does have red eyes.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
No wonder she's the culprit. Lewis has the red text, she's got the red eyes. We got a trend going on here.
Yeah. But her character did not seem genuine at all. All of her lines seemed very forced. They were really corny, and I didn't care for her.
Yeah, this game still does have a trend of some corny dialogue. I don't think the corny dialogue kink gets worked out till Game 7, personally. And, oh God, to say nothing of the phone call. Lisa Ostrom is definitely one of those characters that, even if you don't realize how suspicious she is right off the rip, having fake IDs in her locker and everything, then you just overall don't like her to begin with, since she's just so corny in everything she says.
I have to...
So that leaves the last suspect, which is a really interesting one, because this is one of the most iconic characters in the franchise. Some people love her, some people hate her. This is Professor Beatrice Hotchkiss, Professor Beatrice Gertrude Winifred Hotchkiss, as she says in one of the games she reappears in. So, Professor Hotchkiss is a very nutty character. She is, as Lisa would call her, that nutty old professor. She is an older lady, maybe in her 50s, who does nothing but sit in her hotel room for like the first act of the game, typing away on a typewriter, and just mumbling to herself, shouting out in French.
So yeah, as mentioned before, Professor Hotchkiss, she just stays behind her door in her room the entire time. I believe that's just a toss-up to save on animation.
Which I think was kind of clever, because like it makes sense her character-wise that she's kind of like superstitious and like doesn't want you in her room. So you can see her through the cracks of the door, but you don't actually meet her in person till you complete a bunch of chores as her research assistant, which are very, very inconsequential chores. Stuff like, oh yes, how many windows are there on the north-facing side of the tower? I need to know this. It's very crucial to my work.
Yeah, I did not care for all of her little tasks that she sent us out on.
They can be speedrun killers.
That's true, they can be speedrun killers, but on top of that, they were way too random, not pertaining to the story, and it just kind of dimmed down my impression of her character. But once we start to meet her during the quote-unquote witching hour, as she says,
once you gain her trust, she only comes out in the lobby between like 3 and 6 a.m.
Yeah, so during that time frame early in the morning, you can interact with her in the lobby, and that's when her character starts to open up a little more, and we start to learn more about her fascination with Marie Antoinette. She's
got this whole theory that Marie Antoinette was actually just the victim of lazy scholars, and that she wasn't actually such a horrible woman.
Overall, it's another cool character motivation, like you have Jacques and Dexter. Her character... she's not my favorite in this game. Obviously, my heart goes to Dexter, but she has her place, and I do think it's cool that they bring her back as a reoccurring character.
She comes in through phone calls in games 17 and 26, I think, and she's always just an expert in the field, and she always gets Nancy's name wrong, even in this game when she's just right there with Nancy. Yeah, she calls her Brandy, Nellie.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's crazy. But overall, Hotchkiss might actually be my favorite character from this game. I think that one thing that's important to note is that the 3 best characters in this game, they all have objectives and valid motivations, and I think that's what makes them interesting. Dexter is trying to just outlive his past because he feels ashamed about it, and he sees Nancy as a way of trying to get closure as the game progresses. Jacques is trying to find an old amulet that his grandfather brought him, as he now feels like he's failed his own legacy and he just needs to fulfill his grandfather's to feel complete. And Professor Hotchkiss is trying to clear the name of Marie Antoinette by finding her secret diary, which she believes to be located somewhere in the tower, as she is a scholar of French history.
So
This brings us on to puzzles. Now, this game had very unorthodox puzzles in some places, and I loved them.
I think the puzzles are great. The one that instantly comes to mind, and I know it comes to Jamie's mind as well, is entering the dungeons via the library.
This was such a clever puzzle. So it took me a while to realize it even counts as a puzzle. It's just like a really complicated sequence of events. How are we gonna explain it?
Well, it's a lot of work with the elevator. You have to manipulate which floor the elevator goes to and everything.
This isn't the only game to feature an elevator, but it is definitely the game that makes the most of it, because you can climb out through the hatch in the ceiling into the open shaft, and there's a whole bunch of spooky stuff going on in there. And this becomes relevant a little way into the game when the elevator jams while you're in it and you're stuck in the open shaft. And so Nancy just crawls out the top and stands in a box and jumps up to the next floor. But when you first enter this elevator shaft, you start to realize that you can climb up this ladder and crawl through this vent, and it takes you to the library, which is locked on all their entrances. And so the library is a complete mess.
The first time entering the library is a really cool sequence. You enter through the air duct via the elevator, and I know it gets confusing, but you enter and then you hear the door rattle, so you have to quickly hide and get to cover, so naturally Nancy will climb back up into the air duct from which she came to see a cool little animation of Dexter walking into the room and mumbling to himself. He's talking about where somebody hid something inside the library. It makes his character really suspicious, and I think it was a really cool animation, a cool little story plot point.
And there's a part where he just freezes and it looks like he looks at you, and like 8-year-old Julian and I playing through that sequence were just terrified because we thought he was about to chase us or something. But yeah, it's a really cool sequence. And then the more you explore the library, there's a couple notable things that happen. First is that there is a giant hole hacked in the wall with a whole bunch of dust spilling out of it, and you can use a paintbrush that you find by Jacques to use this dust on the security passcode on the library door to try to figure out what the passcode is. This is a old trick in detective movies and stuff like that. And there's a notebook, it's like an issue of Sassy Detective or something in Nancy's room that gives you a hint on how to do this to figure out, you know, the darkest fingerprint is the first number, and then the lighter they go, that's the second number, third number, fourth number, etc. And then you figure out the combination like that. And so, let's see, then there's another secret passageway, which is a really, really cool scripted event.
Oh, yeah. And there's a secret passageway in the library. In order to open it, there's an extremely simple puzzle. All you have to do is mess with a little clock there in the library. And
Some sort of pendulum or something.
yeah, it's a pendulum clock type thing. And then upon opening this secret passageway, you get a really beautiful musical score as Nancy...
Yeah. This is some of my favorite music in the franchise.
Nancy starts to uncover a lot of Dexter's backstory and his motivation for staying here at the castle. You learn more about his father, or more so how Dexter was adopted and how Ezra Wickford took him in.
This room you find is Ezra Wickford's little secret study. We don't even think that Dexter knows it exists, and it's quite possible that it's what Dexter was looking for when he came in the library a minute ago. It's just a room full of a bunch of old scrapbooks, and there's a really heartfelt poem that was written by Ezra himself about Dexter, his darling young rascally boy, I think he calls him. And there's just this really pretty track.
It's important to note that up until this point in the game, Dexter's just been a jerk to you. And as you slowly uncover his backstory, how depressing his life has been, you kind of grow a sense of understanding and you feel sorry for the guy. And then as you play more throughout the game, he becomes a much more understanding and lovable guy, and one of my favorite characters out of the entire Nancy Drew franchise.
So, we still haven't gotten, though, to how this puzzle to get into the dungeon works, because it's really, really cool.
Becomes a much more understanding and lovable guy, and one of my favorite characters out of the entire Nancy Drew franchise.
So, we still haven't gotten, because you can't just jump across the shaft. You can try at one point of the game, and you end up just knocking your head on the wall and falling to your death. And so, you get down here and you realize that there's something behind the elevator, but you can't get to it because the elevator's on the bottom floor. And Nancy's not about to go ask someone to just hit the button for her and take it up. So what you have to do is set the elevator to the first floor and then go through the front door of the library, triggering the alarm, disable it immediately using the passcode that you figured out using the dust and the fingerprints, crawl up through the shaft, out of the library, into the open elevator shaft, down the vents, and then into the little spot that takes you to the dungeons. You find Jacques trying to saw through a gate in the middle of the night, and he sees you and he freaks out, and he starts trying to explain himself. You want to talk about what he says?
Yeah, Jacques, this is where Jacques' character really starts to bloom. You learn a lot about why he's here specifically. You learn that his grandfather was an
freaks out. He was a carpenter of some sort who was tasked with moving the Queen's Tower to Wisconsin, as it was contracted by Ezra Wickford or something. And while they were taking apart the tower, before they transported it, he found a strange compartment with a book and a medallion in it. And he heard other workers coming, so he took the medallion and he left the book, and then it just got transported. And to this day, Jacques still has the medallion. It's a family heirloom for him. But he wants to know what the book was, because it's being speculated that that book is the secret diary of Marie Antoinette that would exonerate her of all the crimes that historians claim she committed.
So it's really cool that Jacques has a historical tie to this tower, the setting of the game, and it shows his motivation to try to... It's revealed earlier, obviously, that he feels that he's shamed his entire family, and this is his way of trying to redeem himself, is trying to uncover where this diary is that his great-grandfather had found years ago.
He wants to be a hero to France again.
Right, and that's a extremely cool character backstory. It's not a bland, I'm a fake photojournalist, look at me.
Well, I mean, like, villains in these games really have noble causes, but we'll get to the ones that do.
Yeah, so, I mean, Jacques and Dexter, two characters with great character intentions. I mean, so not much else can be said about them.
Anyhow, Jacques says, if you don't believe me, go down to my locker and put in my combination and find the medallion yourself. Then
I mean, so not much else can be said about him.
Anyhow, says, if you don't believe me, go, you'll wake up in your room, and we'll get to that later. But overall, we've been dragging on so long in this puzzles category because that one puzzle is just so cool to emphasize that how you have to sneak through the elevator shaft to get down the secret passageway, and you need to come through the front door of the library and all that stuff. It was just such a weird sequence of events. It was a really good logical puzzle. But otherwise, puzzles in this game, the chores can get a little bit tedious. Sometimes it's stuff like playing with a circuit breaker to fix a power outage somewhere in the castle, on like the third stairwell.
The feather tile puzzle in the Royal Tower, that was a little annoying.
I've gotten really good at that now, because you just need to learn that the borders, right? Like, the top and bottom borders are different. So if you get those right, then you can solve it in like 2 minutes. But, it was a little bit annoying the first time. There's, puzzles in this game are all very logic-based, which I think makes them really fun. It's the puzzles like just finding out research for Professor Hotchkiss that start to get a little annoying, to say the least. Like, how old was Marie Antoinette when the revolution happened or something? I think that's one of them. You just have to like find books hidden around the castle to explain these things. So anyhow,
Moving on to the music of the game.
The music of this game.
It's beautiful.
It's really good. We like this music.
I mean, Her Interactive did an amazing job of the music for the first couple of games. The next couple future games after this one. The music's just beautiful. And my favorite theme from Treasure in the Royal Tower is similar to Message in a Haunted Mansion, the casual exploratory theme, just walking the halls. It's so nostalgic. And I know the community feels the exact same way about this music. It's what makes this game so great, in my opinion. There's also... Is there a danger theme?
There is a danger theme during the ski lift. Danger theme plays during the ski lift challenge. But there's also the, like, gardens theme, I think is what it's called. It plays twice in the game. It plays once when you are with Ezra Wickford's secret passageway study. And then again when you're in the gardens that are hidden behind the ski shack.
Well, and another great theme is the celebratory theme. Every time you find one of the medallions, it's specific to only when you make a breakthrough in the case. That is a really nice touch that I love them doing.
The second half of the game is kind of central around finding 3 medallions that are hidden around the castle. And so every time you find one, the victory theme starts to play.
And victory themes are fun. They give the player a sense of entitlement. You know that you just achieved a breakthrough in the case, that you can interact with more characters now. And I think it's a really cool addition to Treasure in the Royal Tower.
Yeah, it's the music in this game, it all feels very royal. It's to say the least. It's
very fitting for the game.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool addition to Treasure in the Royal Tower.
Yeah, it's the music in this game, it all feels very Tower is second to none. It is really good.
It's beautiful.
There are 3 floors of the castle. The top floor, where Nancy is, and so is Hotchkiss, it's just marble hallways and polished granite walls and such like that.
It's a very royal-esque feel. You know,
You start to feel like royalty living in this place.
It's a little copy and pasted in each hallway, but you can toss that up because it's just it's a fun place.
Yeah.
And I remember my first couple times playing, I would get lost in the place. I wouldn't know where Hotchkiss's room is in retrospect to mine and all this stuff, but you know that it comes with experience.
One thing to note about the atmosphere too is that it actually has a touch of spookiness in it, with the dead ends and just hallways that lead to nowhere every now and again. It's kind of just really eerie to walk down a staircase and get to the bottom and it's just a brick wall. No paintings, no nothing. Just a dead end, and that happens multiple times in the game. So,
yeah, the lobby floor with the library, I think it's really nice. The lobby area is pretty beautiful. It's very spacious. Lisa's room, as annoying as a character she is, it's a very cozy place to be. You always have that crackling fire there, and I always appreciated that. There's really warm colors there. And then you start to go down into the basement, and it feels a little eerie. The hallways are all stone based. The walls are all lined with stone, and it's just got like a dark feel to it. And then you get to the little ski resort, the ski rental place that Jacques runs. That's a little more comforting. You get
more polished.
You get lighter colors there. You get the little elevator entrance. It's a little more welcoming than the dark basement feel that the stones were bringing on. And then, in addition to the basement, you have the floor lower, which is the dungeons. Yeah. And the dungeons are even darker than the basement, obviously. They're dungeons, but it really speaks to how diverse every place in the game is, that each level has a distinct feel, and then you get to these dungeons, and it's really dark.
It just gets darker and darker the more you explore.
So, yeah, until you reach the Royal Tower. That's a really cool place.
Oh, yeah, the Royal Tower is, like, insanely well lit. Yeah. And you can only be accessed through the dungeons. Now, last thing I want to touch on the atmosphere that really makes this game shine, and it's a place where Message in a Haunted Mansion messed up, is that you can actually go outside in the second half of the game and explore the snowy wonderland, as opposed to a game like Message in a Haunted Mansion where you're confined to indoors the entire game. There is like a certain magic in being snowed into the castle and having a reason that you can't leave for the first half of the game, but being able to go outside and actually see just the blankets of snow as far as the eye can see is a really cool touch that makes you feel, and makes the world feel more real.
The garden area is beautiful too.
The garden's really cool. It's a snow-covered garden, a bunch of statues.
I believe there's a music theme that's just called Garden, and
that's what it is.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's a really cool exploratory theme that I'm pretty sure only plays when you're in the garden. It's a nice touch, and the garden is it's a cute little place. So, in conclusion, is there anything else we need to touch on?
The ending of the game. I think we gotta talk about the ending. The ending gets a little bit choppy.
The ending is where the flaws start to come out in this great game, specifically the culprits encounter. Every single line of dialogue, it's pretty pitiful on Lisa's behalf, and Nancy's behalf, too.
Yeah, Nancy's being a bit of an idiot here.
Yeah. Hi, Lisa.
So, this all takes place in the Royal Tower, where you open up a panel and get the journal, you give that to Hotchkiss, and she starts to decipher it, and it has codes in it and all sorts of things that help you find the other amulets. You use the amulets as keys and put them in the right order on the floor, and then use a diamond key hidden behind a mosaic painting of Marie Antoinette to open up the floor, and it just extends up, and there's a giant diamond there, the Queen's diamond from her tiara.
And then that's where Lisa, from out of completely nowhere, makes her grand entrance. And she says she's gonna take the diamond pretty much and leave Nancy here in the dungeons. And pretty...
First,
we get the great reveal of her spicy devil...
Villain venom.
Yeah,
the spicy devil villain venom.
There we go. The spicy devil villain venom. I don't know what her interactive was thinking with that name.
They just pull out a thing of mace and Nancy gets maced in the face.
No, her character, it's a pretty laughable final encounter. It's a shame that the game ends out on that note.
Yeah, because Nancy's vision then gets all blurry, and then you just talk to Lisa for like 3 more minutes, asking her like, why did you vandalize the library? And it's just a still blurry image of Lisa so that they could save on animation. They did a lot to save on animation in this game. It kind of cut some corners, but it still came out pretty well. And just Lisa just foils all herself by just taking the time to talk about her evil plan. And then she starts to run away down the stairs. Nancy runs out and presses a button. The stairs come out below her, like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and she falls into a pit, into a little dungeon that's been there since like the 1700s. And now Lisa is trapped. She says something corny, and Nancy begins reading her letter about how the authorities arrived and wraps up the game.
And boom, that's the end game. I think it could have been handled a lot better.
Could have been handled much, much better.
Yeah, and it was just a kicker. It was so painfully obvious that Lisa is the culprit. That's what really got to me. It irked me, but that's besides the point.
As far as subplot resolutions go, Dexter makes it into the local newspaper again. People start to see
Jacques marries his fiancée, I believe, living happily ever after.
Yeah.
That's besides the point.
As far as subplot resolutions, and everybody has a happy ending besides Lisa.
Yeah. So, really, it was a good conclusion with the ending scene there with Lisa. Lisa kind of just dimmed down the game as a whole, in my opinion.
Right. So, on a tier, so it goes F to A, and then S tier is reserved for the very best. Where do you put this game? Where do you think?
It's like an A.
I think I can give that an A, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what stops it from being an S? Because this is a really fun game.
Lisa's character as a whole, the dumb little saves on animation, Hotchkiss's little dumb chores,
the navigation.
The navigation, yeah, that's something we didn't touch on as much, but the point and click does not work very well in this game. There's
very small hitboxes to click on.
Right, there's many instances where you're just stuck in a corner, waving your mouse around, looking for the place you can escape from. And I mean, it's not necessarily the game developer's fault, but yeah, there's just a lot of navigational issues. It's hard to get from point A to point B sometimes, when it really shouldn't be.
It almost feels like it may have been a bit of a downgrade from game number 3 in some instances, especially navigating the 3rd floor. There's some corners to turn that just get to be kind of difficult to find the arrow to click.
And specifically, clicking on Nancy's room, I remember, always gave me such trouble.
Oh yeah, getting into Nancy's room, you have to click it on the side of the wall, and Hotchkiss's room.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, it was getting to be a pretty bit difficult.
Yeah, so navigation, that kind of sucks. And
you know what? I'll stay at an A. I was tempted to bring it down to a B.
No, yeah, I'm certainly locking in as an A. This game is great in many regards that we all covered. It's just, there's a couple little things that keep it from being perfect, but no game is perfect at the end of the day.
If you're a fan of nostalgia for this franchise and you haven't played Royal Tower in a long time, then I highly encourage you find a download for it somewhere, or maybe just go on Amazon and order a copy of it, because it is a trip down memory lane.
Great game. Can't say much else.
Well, that concludes this review. We just recently uploaded a long nostalgic ambiance play of Treasure in the Royal Tower itself, if you'd like to listen to it for nostalgia, or just to go to bed. It's just some peaceful sounds, kind of like an audiobook with dialogue. And we have just also continued our Let's Plays without any commentary of The Haunted Carousel. And tonight we are going to be taking on Danger on Deception Island and see if we can't beat that in one sitting without any spoilers. Thanks so much for watching. We hope you stick around for some more reviews later on, and have a good day, everyone.